Very good evening, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back to another session, an ongoing series of discussions between heavyweight champions in the field of data science from 360-digit MG and me taking the compeer role, the master of ceremonies, which is a very convenient role. We have Barney, and we used to also have Sharat. Sharat today is out of the picture for reasons pertaining to his poor health. And like we discussed, the seasons are changing. The job market is changing. Everything is happening. And I think Sharat also has been affected by the changing season. All right. Not the job market. On the lighter side, not the job market, the changing seasons. So one of the biggest concerns, I think we discussed about this at the other time also, and one of the most frequent posts on LinkedIn nowadays are discussions about people who have, lost their jobs from big companies, starting from Twitter to Facebook to even Alphabet, etc., and how people are struggling and people are requesting that, looking for a job, etc. And the bright spot on the horizon is the Tata group of concerns, all right? And so I think one of the companies to look for are ultimately, the Indian companies, whether it is Tata or Wipro or Infi, etc. We rarely, very rarely see things about, mass exodus or mass layoffs happening in these companies. In my experience of the last 17, 18 years, which I have been observing for the IT industry, there have been cases of some right sizing in between, but these are the companies to watch. And I think while sounding a little, constrained to the Indian, we should all be going global. But in the current scenario, I think our focus should shift to Indian companies. On that particular note, I like to, start today's session. So today's session is essentially what yesterday's session should have been, which is the ensemble techniques and the hyperparameters, which was kind of, I wouldn't say abandoned, but we had something even better. And nevertheless, let's now continue. So I have Barney, and it will be only just the two of us today. So Barney, my first question is about the hyperparameters, all right? Because that's the topic essentially. So generically speaking about hyperparameters amongst all ensemble techniques, many of them are pretty common, the same hyperparameter and all. Do you have anything that is kind of unique or different, or is something only related to a specific hyperparameter, or anything you'd like to share on those lines?
Okay, so to answer that question, let me share my screen, Nathan. And be it any machine learning algorithm, be it supervised learning or unsupervised learning, they have a lot of hyperparameters. And these hyperparameters are experimented by various scientists, data scientists, mathematicians, statisticians, etc. And then they have also come up with the best options for each and every hyperparameter. For example, if we take the non-generative models like voting classifier, here, we have an option to select the hard voting technique or the soft voting technique. But then the default values which are given are those options which more or less in majority of the scenarios, or I can say on an average, these default options give you the best results. Okay, so, these are a few things that people have to consider. If they are not really clear on what are these hyperparameters and how will these hyperparameters actually be helpful, then the data scientists have to resort to the default options. Okay, that's one very important thing that people have to consider. Yep, Nitin.
All right. Thank you, Bernie, for that answer, and also sharing the screen and explaining it with the cheat with the cheat sheet. Okay. So coming to the next question. Pardon me, my throat is a little tick is there in that. Now, you were mentioning about the default value for the hyperparameters. Like you showed some default value. So, is there what could be, in your opinion, what could be the rationale for those default values? And if they are the default values, are they necessarily the best values? Then the question of that being a tuning parameter is lost. So it is a three-part question. What is the rationale for those default values? Are they the best? I mean, you can probably answer these two questions.
Okay, sure. So I would like to take your attention to yet another non-generative classifier, ensemble classifier, or ensemble technique rather, stacking. And here, what is the rationale behind choosing the default values? So as I've told you, there are a lot of people who are experimenting on the data. They are experimenting by using different algorithms. And they are trying out plethora of experiments by tweaking these hyperparameters, by giving these hyperparameters different options. And based on majority of the scientists or mathematicians or statisticians or economists, based on majority of their conclusion, people come up with a default value. Majority of them say that, hey, do you know what? Cross-validation of 5 always works well, or in majority of the scenarios, it works well. Then that option is included within the libraries. And when you look at scikit-learn, which is a machine learning library in Python, all these default values are decided based on that, based on the majority. And the second question is, are these going to work almost always? The answer is no. These default values, while they are going to work in majority of the scenarios, it is not guaranteed that in all the scenarios you get the best results. Given this context, anyone who is working on hyperparameters, like for example, let me take the attention of our audience to bagging. Within bagging, you have number of estimators. That is number of trees that you need to run. The default value is 10. What are the maximum number of samples that you need to take at each and every split? Okay, and then what are the minimum sample split? Then do you need to, do you want to apply bootstrap sampling? How many processes do you want to use? That is what number of jobs would say. Base estimator, which one do we want to use? Maximum features, so on and so forth. So, one has to experiment with all these hyperparameters by giving different options that one has. For example, number of estimators, experiment with 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, so on and so forth. And figure out at which or with what hyperparameter settings you actually get the right fit model, okay, with the highest accuracy. This is what one has to focus upon. And given this context, I would also say that you have a lot of techniques such as grid search, cross-validation. Then you have random search, cross-validation. Okay, then we also have Bayesian search. Okay, you have Bayesian search, cross-validation. Then we have hyperopt, so on and so forth. There are multiple other techniques which are there, which will help you experiment with multiple options. And then out of all those multiple options, you can get the best hyperparameter settings. Using a specific function, you get those details also. For example, let me show you that as well, since I'm showing this. If you, for instance, run different options here, let me go to, yep, there we go. So, as part of cross validation, there are different options which are chosen. And then this parameter grid, there are a lot of parameters which are experimented, like number of estimators, maximum features, so on and so forth. For each and everything, you have given different options, or multiple options rather. And you experiment with all these hyperparameters. And then when you say, show me the best parameters, it would show you what are the best parameters. Okay. And also it would give you what is the best estimator. You can always save that and then use it for your future prediction. So the point here is very simple. All these hyperparameters are decided while the algorithm was being built as part of your research. And the default values are selected based on umpteen number of experiments which people have performed. And in majority of the cases, these default values have given the best results. But these need not work in all the settings. It need not give you the best results in all the settings. So it's always advisable to experiment with these hyperparameters. And while you experiment with these hyperparameters, you can use grid search, random search, Bayesian search, hyperopt, so on and so forth. Yeah, Nitin, over to you.
Thank you, Bernie. So yeah, you've asked, you've given a pretty detailed explanation about that. So I have a question for you, because everybody talks about this boosting, especially extreme gradient boosting, because that seems to be the highest of the orders. So what are the hyperparameters? As it is the model inherently is kind of perceived to be super powerful. So what is it that the hyperparameters do, and what are the hyperparameters for extreme gradient boosting? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. So even before I go to extreme gradient boosting, let me explain about the other boosting techniques. And even before we proceed further, let me tell you that within boosting, predominantly we have ADA boost, then we have gradient boosting, and then we have extreme gradient boosting. These are the three things that we have. Okay. When it comes to ADA boost, we have all these hyperparameters. The important thing that people have to remember from interview standpoint is that people ask, what is a Bayes estimator? Bayes estimator is decision tree. It's not just decision tree, but decision tree with maximum depth equal to 1. Okay. And the next question which people usually ask is about learning rate. And there is also gradient boosting. Within gradient boosting, we have the loss. Now, when it comes to gradient boosting works based on optimization. And the objective here is to minimize the loss. And then you also have learning rate, the speed at which you want to minimize the loss. Of course, that does not mean that you're going to give a very high value so that quickly the loss is minimized. If you increase the learning rate, there are some other disadvantages. But then the learning rate, the loss, and then the criterion based on which you evaluate your model, then minimum samples at split, minimum samples at leaf, maximum depth. All these are a few common things across various ensemble techniques. But these are a few things that one has to remember. And having said that, complexity parameter is something wherein people will be questioned, and on tolerance level. These are the two things. And then people will also ask questions around what is the difference between tolerance, complexity parameter, and cost complexity parameter, and the loss function. So one should be aware of the differences between all these, right? Having said that, XGBoost, the question was around XGBoost. There are more number of hyperparameters which exist. A few are listed down here. XGBoost is becoming extremely famous because of its parallel processing capabilities. And even if you have a very huge data set, it is going to execute and accomplish the training faster. And none of the other boosting techniques have the parallel processing capabilities except for XGBoost. Okay, and here there are a few hyperparameters such as number of threads. What did I say? I told that XGBoost is extremely famous because of its parallel processing capabilities. When you give number of threads, then obviously it will make use of your cores. You might have a dual core, you might have a quad core, you might have octa core, so on and so forth. Then you also have eta value, learning rate, maximum depth, maximum leaf nodes. Then we have gamma, subsample, column sample by tree, so on and so forth. I can show you a few more, just a moment while I show you those as well. Yeah. And this doesn't mark the end. Okay, whatever I'm going to show now is also not the end of the story. You have a few more hyperparameters. Okay, and the explanations pertaining to each of those is very neatly explained here in the table. Once again, if you ask me, you'll have to focus upon gamma, the subsample, and you have a bunch of things here. Alpha value, lambda value, right, which also act as regularization techniques, right, which will help your model fit right. It will do a proper trade-off between bias and variance. And if you refer to this specific column here, it will help you understand on whether the relevant hyperparameters will avoid overfitting or not. Would it increase the overfitting, preventing the overfitting, or will it decrease? And then the range, not just the default values, but what could be the appropriate range for those relevant hyperparameters is also clearly explained here. So Yep, those are a few things that I would like to bring to your attention. Over to you, Nitin. Hello.
Thank you. Sorry. I was that screen had gotten disturbed, so that's why I was on a different screen. So, so friends, we've had a discussion with on specifically about extreme gradient boosting, and we had discussed at a high level, at a quite a detailed level. So what I'd like to add at this point of time, when we are in this interview process that we are having here, do not treat it as a silver bullet that I'll just listen to the sessions. I have already learned whatever I have to learn. I'll listen to these sessions. I'll memorize the question and answers, and therefore when I will go and sit in the interview, exactly the same question that Nitin Mishra has asked is what people will ask me, and therefore I'll have the answers ready because I have also memorized what Barney has spoken, and therefore I'll be able to give the answer. Please remember, I think if you have gone through our recordings in the initial few days, we have on multiple occasions mentioned, and in the interview process, the answering process also was on the basis of their experiences, the experiences of Barney Kumar and Sharat Chandra. An interview, now I am aware of the projects they have done. Some of the projects that I'm not aware, I can extrapolate and understand that they must have done these are the activities, and that is why they're able to speak with confidence. Trying to memorize use cases and examples from our studies to answer your interview will be counterproductive. This particular session that we are offering is one of the many things that is going to be in the bouquet of capabilities you are going to showcase as an interviewer. All right, as an interviewee, as being interviewed. So you need to have the skills, you need to be able to answer, you need to have some fundamental statistical knowledge, you need to have some amount of coding, you need to have a pleasing demeanor, you need to have confidence, you need to have done good number of projects while doing the projects. So for people who are in the process of learning and going to do the projects, try to question the project itself in these lines. Try to rather than going for a quick fix solution that this is what it is and this is what ends the matter and therefore we got it, fine, let us stop. No, why not? How did it become so easy? If it is easy, then maybe it is not correct. Maybe it has to be a little more complicated. So why don't we go to the next level? So these are some of the things which you should be questioning while the project process, and trust me, the activities, how you do work on the project is going to directly take care of the fact whether you're going to be successful in the interview or not. All the bookish knowledge, and if you have attended Barney's session, classic example, a book on swimming, volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, volume 4. Read all the 4 volumes. Yes, you will know the technique, you will know how many seconds you should hold your breath before you bob out your head. All the theory is fine, but you will have to put both feet into the water to be able to learn swimming, and projects is only the way. And the good thing about 360-digit MG is the projects that you do with 360-digit MG also translates to a kind of an experience because you get a certification from that. All right, so try to make best use of it. Try to contribute to the maximum, to the core level within the project that is there. Be the god in that particular project. You are the one everybody is turning to. Take that leadership role in that. And if you do that, success is yours. At the first project, maybe no, you may not have that capability. You are new. Somebody else has taken the leadership role. You have the second project to go for. You have the third project to go for, right? It is your enthusiasm that should ensure that you take more than what is actually specified for you. What we have unfortunately seen, and I'm using this opportunity to communicate to our participants also, is, okay, fine, course is over, classes are done. Let us relax. There is no time for relax. All right. The only time you relax is when you go to the job. All right. And then also you don't relax because it is constantly you will have to keep upgrading yourself. I have a question from Abhishek. What is volume 1 and 2? Okay. I was just making a joke there about, books on swimming. Even if you read volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, volume 4 of how to swim, All right. I don't know if there is a book on swimming at all, but I was making a joke. So your bookish or theoretical knowledge is of no use in case of, I was using the analogy of swimming unless until you dive into it. In fact, even if you don't have theoretical knowledge, if you jump into swimming and learn, you can still manage to become a good swimmer. So on similar lines, whatever trainings that you undergo by virtue of sitting in the class, etc., therefore you should do it with the project. Nikhil, what is the process in the project, sir? Okay, so the project process is the CRISP MLQ methodology. It starts the six phases of CRISP MLQ methodology that has been explained to you. Our participants, when they learn through the 6 stages. They have to start with the business and data understanding, then go to the data preparation, and then subsequently move on to the model building evaluation. That is the exact. So within a week of 10 to 15 days, within a period of 10 to 15 days, when you are working on the project, all right, you will get the gist, the essence, the squeezed out, the concentrate of the entire 6 phases in that 15 to 20 days that you will be working on the project. 1 day you'll work on that, 2 days you'll work on this, 2.5 days you'll work on phase 3, 1 day you'll work on evaluation, or half a day you'll work on like that it'll be, and you will have a really good time when you're trying to do the deployment. It is going to be a back and forth exercise because that is relatively new, and that is where that is how the process of the entire thing is. We have time for one more question. So, sir, please take one class on EDA using statistic technique for extract value from data. Okay, without naming the participant who has posted the question, I'm not very clear about your question about what is the requirement, but yeah, we do understand that you want to have some kind of a session with a live example of EDA, focused more on the statistical aspects. Your point is taken and taken into advisement. We will definitely work something out on those lines, and do let you know about it, my friend. So I think it's calls for a wrap. We've had a great session. So many days we've been getting feedbacks. Feedbacks have been only trickling in. We expect more feedbacks to come in. We expect more suggestions to come in. All right. And please do reach out to us through various forums that is mentioned there. And please let us know what is it that you want us to teach. We have a considerably, we consider ourselves to be quite knowledgeable with reference to what is expected. But if you have something more that you feel is relevant or required in the job market, please do let us know. And then we will definitely tweak our programs and then help you even further. All right, then. Thank you so much, and have a great evening ahead. See you all tomorrow. Bye.